This week's reading from the Rays of the One Light. The following readings are from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita. Each week we read from both scriptures as prescribed by Yogananda ji and by his Guru Sri Yukteswar ji, who was guided by Baba ji to compare the two scriptures to show the same underlying truths between them. This week's title Is God present even there where there is ignorance? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. In the Gospel of St. John chapter 1, the Gospel of St. John chapter 1 makes a reference to the divine light that is obscure to the rational faculty, but that enlightens our higher nature. The light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Reason recoils from this statement with innumerable questions. What is this darkness? Is it conscious that it should comprehend anything? What sort of light would be capable of shining in darkness without transforming at least that part of the darkness in which it shines into light? Does this light shine only at night? And if so, why only then? The solution is that to divine sight, even daylight seems darkness. The sun itself, like the moon, which shines only by the reflected light from the sun, is but a kind of reflection of the cosmic light, which, being immaterial, is invisible to the eyes, but which is the great source of all the material reality. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda describes his youthful visit to Ram Gopal Muzumdar, the sleepless saint, who lived in the vision of that hidden light. Around midnight, Yogananda wrote, Ram Gopal fell into silence, and I lay down on my blankets. Closing my eyes, I saw flashes of lightning. The vast space within me was a chamber of molten light. I opened my eyes and observed the same dazzling radiance. The room became a part of the infinite vault, which I beheld with interior vision. Why don't you go to sleep? Sir, how can I sleep in the presence of lightning, blazing whether my eyes are shut or open? You are blessed to have this experience. The spiritual radiations are not easily seen. The saint added a few words of affection. This is the light that shineth in the darkness. It has been described variously in the great scriptures. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 11th chapter, the devotee Arjuna is given an experience of the infinite state and exclaims in awe, if there should rise suddenly within the skies sunburst of 1,000 suns, flooding earth with beams undeemed of, then might be that Holy One's majesty and radiance dreamed of. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
This first reading is from Whispers from Eternity by Paramhansa Yogananda. It's entitled, Rock Me in the Cradle of All Space. Rocked in the cradle of the blue-colored past, brightly colored present, and dim gray-colored future, I, thy child of eternity, am restless. I strained ineffectually the feet of my power. At last I succeeded in jumping out from duality's cradle of delusion. Thou hast caught me in thy infinite arms to rock me in all space. I am thy babe of eternity, safe now in the cradle of thy omnipresent bosom. I hope you had a nice Pungal, and it seems like everyone is starting to wake up again or resurrect after Pungal. It's such a good thing with these holidays, how we get to just take a step back. I was speaking to a friend on the phone, and I had called him on Pungal asking him for something, and then he said, I'm sorry, I'm can't do it today on Pongal, but I can do it tomorrow. And I said, I'll call you. And he said, I will call you. I said, fine. And then neither of us called each other. And then I called him days later, and because in fact I had changed my mind and I didn't even need his help, but I called him days later for some other help, and he said, I forgot to call you. I'm so sorry. I only now when you're calling am I remembering that I said I would call, but I had gone to my native and I had celebrated and we had such a wonderful time, and so I was so happy for him. And again, that, a day's holiday is something, but when you have a whole week, especially at the beginning of the year, it's a perfect time to stop, reflect. It's a time to get dislodged from our routines, to just even take a moment. What is life all for? And sometimes we're working, sort of in a almost a hypnotism. And so it's good to just step back, even just in relief or whatever, but also to try to feel, try to enjoy, especially time spent with family, enjoyable time spent with family, read between the lines. So, if it is enjoyable, I was speaking to a friend too, and I said, well, it must be so nice to have your daughter-in-law living with you now, because then you have more help for Pongal. And she said, yeah, we have to remember too that all the puja, all the food, all the things are not just there to sort of walk into and just enjoy as if they've been brought by Swiggy. Who made all those? Who did all those? Sometimes the holiday comes after the holiday because of all the hours of preparation and work that went into the whole thing. Of course, service is wonderful, and it's nice to make something beautiful, but it's nice also when we do it together. It's the easiest way to deepen friendship, and that's true here at Ananda too, that you make friends most easily when you serve together. Just in the process of doing things together, friendship comes. It's not just psychological. I think there's a spirit that comes through, because when we're giving, they say it is more blessed to give than to receive. It says that in the Bible, and Swamiji said, why is it more blessed to give than to receive? I mean, you can imagine anything can sort of be taken, with the reading today begins with the rational mind. What we're talking about goes beyond the rational mind. And you can imagine the rational mind saying, it is more blessed to give than to receive. I want to tell everyone, it is more blessed to give than to receive. And that way, if everyone knows that it is more blessed to give than to receive, they will all give to me. And I can just receive. And so remember that, give, for your own good. And so Swamiji said, no, first of all, we have that experience. That's all it takes. You do give. Maybe especially when you're not feeling particularly well or particularly in a good mood, or you're dealing with someone who's being difficult to you, but you find a way to give. Again, it's a very effective strategy. If someone is talking too much nonsense, just feed them something, because for those moments, they will be quiet while they're chewing or sipping or something. But also, and don't put anything in the food or the drink, but it's a way of just saying, look, never mind, just here, let me give you something. And you find that it gives us an expansion, because when we're feeling pain, we're basically contracted. We're feeling small. Sometimes that's painful in itself, even on a sort of subconscious level, it sort of psychologically hurts. I know I should be more than I am. I know I should be happier than I am. Why? Well, we'll hopefully get into that. Meaning, why do we think that? But in any case, Swamiji said, first, it is more blessed to receive. You feel how good it feels when you give. And then he said it's more blissful to give than to receive. That's what makes it blessed. In other words, it's not just everything that comes in these teachings is not the spoken truth that you have to follow, or this is what you should do if you want to be good, and someone else decides if you are good enough. It is that this is what you can do to enjoy yourself more. It's almost like a heavenly physician who's figured out all the drugs or all the Ayurveda and say, look, you can, experiment and find it on your own if you want, but you may, by the 100th experiment, you may be dead, either from an overdose or from the disease. There was a comedian who made a joke, I can't help but share it. He said, you see medicines advertised that say maximum strength. He said, you never just see strength or adequate strength. It's always maximum strength for painkillers especially. And he said, what does that even mean, maximum strength? That's what I want, maximum strength. Calculate what will kill me and give me just less than that. And so, but what if you get the calculation wrong? You see, that's why we benefit from other people having discovered these things to tell us, look, this works. Still, these things we have to find out on our own. We have to experience on our own to fully know them. Swamiji said a truth cannot be learned. It cannot even really be discovered. It can only be recognized. In other words, when we're learning things, we don't really sort of, if I tell you that the triple simplex is equal to the quarter hyperbole, you'll just say, what is that? I'll say, I don't know. In other words, something completely unrelated to any experience of ours, anything, just nonsense. It's just sort of, I'm glad to hear it. We can't learn it, we can't understand it, but there's something inside us that recognizes, yes, that's true. You can put it another way. What does even recognition mean, to recognize something? We know that feeling, yes, right, yes, I know that's true. Usually it comes in the heart. But recognize, even the word, recognize, to sort of think again, to rediscover, to remember. Even the sages call it that, the saints call it that, smriti, divine memory. The process of awakening is smriti. Again, awakening, a wonderful word. To awaken into consciousness. When you wake up out of sleep, you don't suddenly say, oh my gosh, who am I and what are all these things? And, I'm on some other planet. It feels that way sometimes, but we awaken to our state of consciousness, our default state. We were asleep was somehow lesser, and we have awakened to return. Another good example is healing. We've returned to full health, our natural state, our state of joy, our state of bliss. And so remember that this is our true nature, but we have to, again, recognize that ourselves. You can't tell anyone. You can, but it won't get in unless they have it in themselves to recognize. And you can say, well, that doesn't seem fair. Some people have it, some people don't. Everyone has it. Swamiji often told the story of, he said, I think even the greatest criminal, people really don't believe that they're all bad. That they're such a bad person. There was this famous criminal named Dillinger, who in America, I don't remember what year in America, but long ago, who shot so many people, and he died in a shootout with the police. But they found a little note written next to his. They found a piece of paper next to his body, and it said, "I have been greatly misunderstood." Certainly by, first of all the 30 people that he shot or whatever. I think they were not the only ones with the misunderstanding there. It was he. But he said, "I've been greatly misunderstood, and in this body beats a very loving heart." He said that about himself. And it's the feeling that there must be some goodness in me, and there must be some goodness, more goodness out there that I want. I can feel it. And there's that impulse, that attraction, that pull to become more than we are, to feel more joy than we feel. That's why this reading on the affirmation is so perfect. The first one of the year is success. And that's such a helpful affirmation for the year, not only for New Year's resolutions and also just sort of, as Master said, putting 2023, as we were reading, the ashes are all gone and now the rebirth of 2024. That's how life is. Every new, springtime and season. I think spring lasts about a week here. But, it's sort of that interval where it is no longer cold or cool or whatever. Does anyone know what 82 degrees is in C? I mean, sorry, it's sort of. Yeah, I know. It's 5/9 minus. Yeah, I know. But anyway, that just accept that 80 degrees is not very cold. It's warm, and so I was joking with my mom on the phone that it's a brisk chill, 82 degrees. You really feel that nip in the air, And she just 82 is hot in America, and so. Someone was saying also of the weather in Texas. They have some relatives living in Texas. Oh, it's they say it's warm. It's like Chennai. It's just warm. I said, well, if you're from Chennai, you would say it's warm. The people in Texas describe it as sweltering, boiling hot. But the thing is, I'm from Chennai too, and you just get used to it. I think you get baked long enough that you just kind of, it's fine. The problem is then going to the cold. Yeah, all my resistance and hardiness for the cold has been worn down over the years. But anyway, to come back, we have this sense of wanting and being more. Everyone does. This, for example, Master described it as everyone wants to avoid pain and find pleasure. This is the first stage of evolution. In his book, The Science of Religion, which was the very first talk he gave in America, the first talk he gave in English was on the boat to America, and it's a wonderful story if you haven't read it, An Autobiography of a Yogi. He prayed for help, and he said he heard his guru's voice saying, "You can speak!" Because it was not easy. It was to just give a discourse in a foreign language. But then he got to America and he gave this talk, The Science of Religion. And what is the science of religion? Well, not to sort of make it too narrow, meaning too specific. Many things can come from that. But one of the key sciences of religion is yoga. Really is. The three philosophies of the 6 Indian philosophies are Sankhya, Yoga, and Vedanta. The other is Vaisheshika and Nyaya, and there's one other one, I forget the name of it. Mimamsa, something. Anyway, those masters said those are more sort of not needed, but for practical purposes. But Sankhya gives us the reason, the explanation that there is something beyond our sense perception. That it basically says, by the way, there's delusion. You should know. Everything you see, feel, experience is not all that there is. Sometimes people get upset with the thought, this is not real. They tell me it's not real. It feels really real. I would like a vada. That is not real. And you're just sort of being left with everything I know, everything that I sort of experience is not real, or is not good, is not the truth. And somebody sits up somewhere with some higher wisdom just laughing at me. Or telling me all these things that they get to know and I don't get to know. It doesn't seem fair. But of course we do get that sense. God does try to help us. Even every night when we sleep, we have a dream. I mean, if we have a dream, we can wake up and it feels so vivid, so real. And we wake up out of it and we go, oh, it wasn't real at all. And the masters say that as we awaken from this experience, it will be the same. It's just as much from sleeping to wakefulness, to go from wakefulness to self-realization. And it's amazing how that happens, and how easily we let go of that dream. Sometimes if you have a really good dream and you get woken up out of it, you can, but I wasn't finished, or I was enjoying. I remember Sharmila telling me early on that she had this, she was napping after she'd finished her sadhana, and it was the middle of the day and quiet. She was napping, and she suddenly had this dream of Master coming to her. It was Master, right? Yes. Master came to her in the dream, and I don't remember it exactly, but it was as if he opened his mouth to speak, and she woke up because her child was sort of shaking her, saying, "Ama dosa." And it was the mark of what a superconscious dream it was that she didn't say, go get your own dose, I'm going, she's, okay, no problem. She said that joy was with her, and she just went on, and then she helped her son that way. So that would be a dream I would like to return to. Like, okay, please let me have Sharmila's dream tonight. And then, actually, Master gave that technique, interestingly. He said, if you want to see one of the masters, if you want to see someone who has departed this earth, you can pray before sleeping. Pray to God, not praying to that person only, but praying to God, help me connect with this person tonight. Help me see this person tonight in my sleep. Especially, he gave the technique for contacting dear loved ones who have departed. And this is I think it's in his super advanced cosmic science course. Gotta love the titles that Master gave. He was also having to attract Americans to it, and if he called it level 2, maybe it wouldn't have got them as much as super advanced cosmic science course. I mean, my gosh, it's fantastic. So keep that in mind. Suppose you've never had a dream of Master. So that would be nice. I remember a man who was debating about taking discipleship. Just not sure, he says. I couldn't. I don't know. And I could feel for him, because that's exactly how I felt. Not I couldn't, but I wasn't sure if it was the right thing to do. Not was it good, but was I good? That's what I didn't have enough self-confidence to feel. And just to finish that thought, I waited on the fence, struggle, should I take it, should I not take it? And I decided I couldn't. I knew I couldn't go back, and I knew I couldn't sit on this fence any longer, so I just took the plunge and said yes. And if it's wrong, stop me, and if you don't want me to, I'm sorry. My problem was I took all the classes by myself in a home study or an online situation. In 1996, online was called books. Same books that you studied, that you own from that class, same book. And I just didn't know if Master had accepted me. I mean, how did I know that I hadn't just made this all up in my head? That, okay, Guruji, if you accept me, or rather, if you don't accept me, say something. Okay, great, thanks. I didn't know. I didn't have that confidence. I had met very few people from Ananda. I had actually a lot of blessings. And I told some of these to Dhyanaji, and she said, and yet you doubt. Has he accepted you? Have you accepted him? And it was very helpful to hear. But I didn't have complete confidence. I just stepped forward, and then later, after Kriya initiation, that full confidence came. Not because of the Kriya initiation, I just mean that was quite some time before that. What I mean is, I'm sure the Kriya initiation helped, but I don't mean at the initiation. That gave me all the confidence. It was some months later. And Dharmini's experience was very different. She was meditating. She heard in her ear, Yogananda's your guru. She said, great. So that was her big journey, just like that, to 100%. Anyway, this man was saying, I'm not sure if I should take discipleship. And I this morning of the initiation, it was Sunday morning, he said, I woke up and I looked up and Yoganandaji was standing over my bed and he was smiling. So, I don't know, I guess I'll take it. So, just... You know how many times Yoganandaji has been standing over my bed smiling when I wake up? 0. So it's just like... So anyway, if you want to have an experience of Master, you can pray to him before sleep. Come to me before sleep. You can also pray to him before meditation and say, come to me that way. And you have a right to ask. It's not as if, I'm sure you're very busy and I've checked your calendar and it says engaged, but... if there's some kind of waiting list, no, you don't have to. You just say, Master, now I want to see you. And that works. When it will work and how it will work, you may be surprised. But if you ask him and you insist and don't give up and don't get, I asked him 5 times already and he's, I'm sure he's getting annoyed. It's not that. I mean, often he answers and we don't even hear it. We don't even recognize it. Sometimes much later we realize, the reason for it. I can't think of an example right now from Master's life, but there were so many things Swamiji meditated on. He said, Master's smile. Why did he smile at that, at that moment? Years later, it would come to him, oh, that's what was behind that smile. Or Master, he said, would lift an eyebrow. Why did he lift an eyebrow? For example, this is the only one that comes to my mind at the moment. Swamiji Master and a teacher of yoga postures Master was having this teacher hosting the person, and Swamiji was serving them lunch. As you've read from the New Path, he says he often, or saw in the movie, Master asked him to serve the guests lunch, and then he would sit after the guests left, Master and Swamiji would sit for hours. Sometimes Master would talk to him. And he said he would talk to him not only about the work, the history of the work, the future of the work, the teachings. He said he would also speak about, Swamiji's brother and sister's disciples, sometimes in great detail. And he said, I didn't know why he would tell me these things about people, and they didn't know why either. He didn't necessarily do this with everyone. Swamiji said later, I feel he was preparing me for my mission, the things I needed to know and understand to be able to go forth and create everything he was able to do since, including, in consequence, this very temple here. But the three of them were together, this yoga asana teacher, and Master said something about yoga asanas that, the asanas are a wonderful system, again, a wonderful contribution to the science of yoga to the world and to health and well-being. And Swamiji said the energization exercises are even better than asanas. And he said, Master just looked at him. Just for a moment, and then they continued on. I mean, he didn't look at him, anything that you would know, what kind of look was this look, or sort of thanks, I created them, so I appreciate that. No. He just looked at him, and then they went on. And Swamiji wondered, because Master himself said all the time, and we have recordings, you can hear it. He says, the tension exercises are better even than asanas. And then in another situation, he says, recharge the body with the tension exercises. You don't know what you have received. Every time, we hear that, it's just, because that's what we do every day, and there's Master talking about it. And Master actually didn't have a lot of interest in the yoga postures, Swamiji said. Sometimes we see photos of these demonstrations of the asanas, which Master did because, think about it. You're in a foreign country. You're trying to explain to them the benefits of yoga. You're also trying to intrigue them, to attract them. So, you can show them somebody doing peacock pose or a headstand or all these things that are quite... Because you can automatically see, could I do that? Wow. And I have to relate to this thing, and yet it's maybe foreign or exotic, outside my experience. But it's also, I have a body, I can see what's happening. It's not like some discourse in Sanskrit or some deep metaphysical teaching that is beyond me, wow, you can do that. Or you could show a picture of someone meditating. Now, yogis, devotees, but otherwise, people would say, are you sleeping sitting up? Ache. And in fact, when meditation came out and hit America in the 1960s and 70s, of course, medical scientists and other scientists are sort of like, what is this? Is this anything, partly because they hadn't come up with it, so then they were very skeptical and questioning it. But, so the first question they asked is meditation different than sleep? People say, I had such a great meditation, I feel so refreshed. It's like, yeah, you had a nap. Yeah, tukam. Great, no wonder you feel better. But then they, did all these things and, EEGs and ECGs and any other kind of EGs that they could do, scans of the brain, and they saw that the brain patterns in meditation were very different than the brain patterns in sleep. So they said, okay, something is different happening when you meditate. Okay, we accept that. And it went from there. So sometimes we find to our horror that meditation isn't different than sleep. Because we slept during the meditation. One man said, I went so deep, I don't know where I am. I said, well, ask the rest of the class. We all know where you were. I'm not kidding. I mean, it was like, sort of the rumbling of the atoms was going on, the thunder of Om whenever he meditated, because the snores were so loud. To be fair to him, it was in a class of 3 people, so it like really was noticeable. 4 people. So, anyway, Master, if you can remember, he was having lunch with someone. He gave Swamiji a look when Swamiji said the energization exercises are better than asanas. And Swamiji said, I realized much later, because I wondered, why did he give me that look? And Master didn't sit afterwards and say, you might have noticed I gave you a look. Now here's why I gave you the look. A, B, no. And in fact, I will get through this story, but I have to mention this point. People would ask Swamiji, why didn't you ask Master whenever you had this kind of question? When Master said this thing and you didn't understand it, not on an intellectual level, because Swamiji asked Master more questions than anybody, he said, as far as he knew. It wasn't just that he had the questions like a doubt, but he thought also, he was thinking for the future. If somebody asks me this question about Master's teachings, I won't know how to answer it. So let me ask on behalf of all the future people, because he came to Master late in life. And so he took advantage of that. As he said, I asked also for others. Not just sometimes people would ask him to ask Master, but also that the sort of unborn future generations, I'm asking for them. So we'll have the answer. But people would say to him, for example, when Master said to him, you have a great work to do, Walter. I mean, it was an unusual thing to say, and he said it only when they were alone. You have a great work to do. And someone asked Swamiji, why didn't you ask him? Oh, okay. Great work, huh? So, Enada, Yepadi? Yepo? Why not, get some details and say, could I have at least a few of the headings and some subheadings before we drill down? Timeline. And Swamiji said, I only heard him say this once. He said, I didn't feel to ask him. So first of all, I didn't feel to ask him. And that's interesting I have a question, let's ask it. No, he had questions. He did say, I didn't know, and I wondered. And he said it never felt like a compliment. Like, you have a great work to do. It was that he said it felt like a command. That you'd better do this. Without saying anything of what it was. He said, you got more from Master that way. When you didn't ask. In cases like that. That's why he didn't feel to ask, or part of it. You got more from him that way. What does that mean? Again, Master, as Swamiji describes elsewhere, was always asking people to tune in inside, to try to grasp the meaning from inside. He would sometimes say illogical statements, contradictory statements, to try to get them to grasp the underlying meaning. And this is common, and even in India, you read the teachings of one saint says to his disciples, you must eat, but you mustn't eat. Okay, well, it seems like I can't win that one, so I'll eat. But no, then the saint explains later, you must eat to keep your body alive, but you mustn't eat out of greed, because it'll just hurt the body, and whatever else the teaching there may be. But, so it's trying to always help us go beyond just the surface. That's the whole point of this reading today, to go beyond delusion, to go beyond the darkness and so on, to discover that, and to believe that there is something there, and to whatever experience we have. So, that's back to the poor yoga teacher and the energization exercises. Forgive me there. If I had this talk to do all over again, it would be shorter and concise. But Swamiji said, I knew Master looked at me because he didn't want me to tout his system, especially to another yoga teacher, as if it was better in any way. Not that he didn't want to offend the person or anything like that. I'm sure if the person had asked, what are these energization exercises, maybe they did. Whereas Master speaking to a whole audience would certainly say it. But with someone, he was always respectful, always considerate of the other person. And Swamiji recommended that we be this way. He said, when you speak something, be tentative in how you put something forward. It doesn't mean hesitate or that you actually are full of doubt. But we can sometimes think we know what the other person is thinking and we're going to set them straight. And the worst way to do that is in an email or a letter. And how do you know? Because either you've sent one and seen the flames that resulted from that, or because it's been done to you. The first sentence of the email, I know you're thinking this, isn't true. And the pages and pages that follow is something that could be so easily avoided if we just had a conversation. I know you don't like this. Actually, I do. Oh, hold on. I have to delete these pages and pages and pages that I prepared. So always be hesitant. Be in conversation. Remember, a conversation is two people speaking. And so give the person a chance to say something, and you may find that you're much more agreed than you thought. And in fact, if you are in a discussion or you're trying to persuade someone or come to the sort of same understanding, it's very helpful to hear the points from the other person first, because they may make 6 out of the 10 points you were trying to get across, and then you don't have to make them, and it's even stronger because they made them. You see, and you can support that. You can even say, that's a good idea. As Swamiji said, who cares where the idea came from or who had it first? It's a truth. It's sort of like, having, having an AC in a temple. You say, oh, well, that's a good idea. And it's sort of like, well, listen, anybody would have that idea after sitting up here without it for about 10 seconds. So it's not like some big, deep discovery. It's just a fact. It's a truth. It's just useful. And so you can see where my mind is right now. I'm sort of thinking that one's blocked a little. Could you turn that one up a little bit? I'd like to feel the AC in the temple. So this experience of truth, this experience of the light, is something that we could we have to accept what the masters say, and that makes us want to go forward to experience it. We believe, even if we haven't experienced it. But again, there's something inside us that recognizes, that remembers, that somehow feels this is true. Until someone has that in them, meaning they all have the potential, everyone does. But until someone has that active in their awareness, dynamic to their consciousness, it's better not to speak to them too much about these things. How do we know? Well, just remember if there was a time when you weren't interested and someone was saying, by the way, you should be more spiritual. Pfft. Yeah, sure. No thanks. Just not interested. And then what happens? Do we have a big blazing light that says, you should be more spiritual? Maybe that happens to 0.1%. Does Master come and stand over our bed? That's the thing. It happened to that man, and he didn't say, at all. In fact, he left not long after taking discipleship. It isn't the experience. If only I could have, then I would believe. We hear many people who have amazing experiences. Swamiji relates them among stories he knows of Master, and yet it wouldn't be enough. And I say that with compassion and not with judgment or whatever. It's just that it is a counterexample to the statement, if only I could, see the blinding light, I would believe forever. But that we just feel in our hearts, there's something there, and I want it. But what awakens us to that? Usually suffering. We say, this hurts too much. I did something, it did not work. I don't want to play anymore. Or at least not until I know the rules, the real rules of this world. Because I followed all the rules, it did not work. I had this whole plan, and something came completely out of, left field or whatever. I was blindsided, hit in the back of the head. This is no fun anymore. Especially if you've been a devotee for many lifetimes, because there, Swamiji said, just a little touch of suffering is enough to awaken. Oh, that's right. I remember Maya. Vandam. I want out. And that's just been built up of years and years and years, meaning thousands of years, lifetimes and lifetimes of saying, okay, I'm not going to get it together on this level. Does it mean we're not going to enjoy life? Of course not. Enjoy it with God's joy. See if maybe God allowed our karma to bonk us on the head. It's our karma anyway, to wake us up. You know, we would sometimes go to the doctor to get a health checkup because of pain, and we end up needing a surgery or something very dramatic because there was a bigger issue involved, and it was only that pain that hinted to us that there was a much bigger problem. And if we hadn't had it, we might have left the body. And so in that same way, a little bit of pain from life is a warning that there may be a bigger need of healing. We may have to do more work. We may have to come to deeper understanding. It's always a prod. Swamiji explains it in a reading a few weeks after this, that God's love is revealed to us in His very attempt to heal us. You could say, why does He give us pain? Doesn't He know we don't like it? Of course, we don't like it. And He's not saying, have some pain. No. It's not that way, and we laugh, but be glad that you laugh, because that understanding isn't immediate. You see, in other words, well, of course God would be kind or loving, or at least kind some of the time, as opposed to harsh all of the time. Even that is an understanding we have to come to. People can say, God, I am God's joy. They can say, well, is God even joy? I don't know. Well, if that is your struggle, the only hint I would say is any joy that you have look for more. And this is what Master describes in the Science of Religion, just coming back to that. We avoid pain and we seek pleasure. He said, in time that we elevate that, because we find that just pain of the body, pleasure of the body, is first of all, it just goes like this. I have pain of hunger, so I have an idli, and then I have 67 more, and suddenly I have pain again, of a different kind. And the pain of an overfull stomach is not that different from the pain of hunger, actually. And so we find that we can't get to just permanent pleasure, and it never goes back. Even if we have a perfect pleasure that doesn't lead to any pain, just the loss of it sometimes then leads to a pain. That, oh, I want it again, and so on. But so we also find the third way we discover this doesn't work is we just get bored. Okay, I have all my pains and pleasures kind of handled. Is that it? My heart isn't satisfied. My stomach is satisfied, but not my heart. Everything is just kind of dull. I say as people get onto the path from suffering, a friend of mine got on the path because she got the perfect husband, the perfect house, the perfect job. Perfect husband, perfect job, and then perfect house. And everything was just the way she wanted it. And she sat down in the middle of her clean kitchen and she just felt miserable. I have it all now. And it still doesn't feel like anything. It's not enough. And so she didn't get 2, 3, or 3 houses or an extra husband or 2. It wasn't that more of the same was going to do it. It was that there's got to be something more. And for that, Master says, then we start seeking happiness, which is beyond just pleasure and pain. We try to avoid suffering. In other words, we go from the physical level to, you might say, the emotional level, trying to avoid suffering and to seek happiness. And that eventually gets elevated to seeking bliss beyond happiness, because even happiness is not enough, we find. Even if everything is going well and we are cheerful, still there must be something more. But happiness is an excellent start. We should always keep this in mind. In anything that we're seeking, that we're wanting happiness behind that. Even love, Swamiji said, people will seek. And in fact, I mention that because the first reading in affirmations is success, the second reading is love. Meaning, like, let's get to basics of the very first qualities he chose for the year, because they are in sequence for the year. And then the third one is happiness. And he said, even in seeking love, which you hear so many people seeking, and we have felt it too, I'm sure, ourselves in our hearts, he said, it's not just love as an abstraction or even just as a feeling. It's the joy that we feel. If suppose you get a notification on your phone, on WhatsApp, that 78 people are sending you love. You say, oh, that's nice, and now it's 781 people are sending you love. Oh, how great, now 7,600, and you just go, well, I don't feel anything, I just see this little number changing. Great, I'm glad to know there's so much love. When am I going to get some of it? When am I going to feel it? And that feeling, he said, brings us joy. You could say brings us happiness, just to not confuse the point. He said it's that joyful feeling of being loved or loving that we're seeking. Again, happiness, joy are at the core of it. Master said so too. In the beginning on the spiritual path, it is better not to meditate seeking God's love, but to seek His joy. And that kind of puzzled me for a while, because I really was meditating, seeking God's love, and wanted that love. And only late, first of all, Master said, seek joy instead. Okay. God, I don't want love. Just joy. But when Swamiji's explanation made sense, why did I want love? Because I wanted that feeling of how it feels. That again, not just the thrill. If there's a thrill of love, we have to be a little suspicious, because that may be more on the human level. And that is risky. Not bad. If you experience human love, it's a wonderful thing. Master said it's hints at God's love. Just remember, it's God loving you through that person. It's you loving that person through God, loving that person through you. That elevates it. And that also is the truth. But again, we have to come to discover that. So, the last point I wanted to make about this was sort of a footnote, that this line, to divine sight, even daylight seems darkness. And he gives an illustration. The sun itself, like the moon, which shines only by reflected light of the sun. I mean, we can see that. We go out at night, and if it's a full moon, you say, oh, it's kind of bright. But then when the sun comes out, it's way brighter. We see the stars at night, if we do, especially if you leave the city and can see the sky again. And then you say, look at all these bright stars. Gosh, that is so bright. That's Sirius, and that's, Arcturus. Remember that Sirius is the brightest, partly because it's closer. So many stars are way bigger and brighter, but they're further away, so they don't look as bright. Anyway, that when all it takes is for the sun to come out, and they're all gone. And how do you know? Because especially if you go online and find some video of a total solar eclipse, as soon as that eclipse happens, when the moon passes in front of the sun, all the stars are back. It's suddenly night again. How did that happen? Normally we need 12 hours to... No, they're there. Just can't see them because something is way too bright. And so we get that illustration all the time, that God is like that, way brighter than the moon, the stars, anything that we're experiencing. And then it says... Swamiji says, but the sun itself is but a kind of reflection of the cosmic light. And Master said that too. Fascinating. He said the sun, this is related but a little different, the sun is a symbol of the spiritual eye. I mean, think about that for a moment. The sun is a symbol of the spiritual eye. I mean, the sun isn't a symbol. The sun is right there. The sun says, I beg your pardon, I'm not a symbol, and I'm going to cook you a little more. No. I mean, it's almost as if he's saying God put the sun there so that it would remind us to seek this light within, to remind us to look upward, this spiritual eye. If you're not familiar, this thing that I'm probably blocking, sorry if there's a bit of an eclipse with my head. So the sun is a symbol of the spiritual eye. It's how much God is giving us hints and help all the time. What's interesting about this, like I said, it's really an epilogue. It's not really the point to end on, but that we have not only the Master's testimonies, the scriptures, everything, our own inner feeling that there must be more, and that all that this light is and that I'm experiencing is, all this life that I'm experiencing, still there must be something brighter, something more joyful. To have both and. I'm not saying to renounce, and I'm not saying to reject, and I'm not saying it's fake. It has its own level of reality, but again, I'm not satisfied. I want more joy, more love, more peace. And it's so common now, and thanks to the internet, we hear about these things. People who have near-death experiences. If you haven't looked up near-death experience, or you can now just write NDE, and you find there's so many of them. They became into the popular awareness in the very early 1970s. In fact, at Master's birthday this year, we listened to Swamiji giving a talk in 1977, and he mentions the book, Life After Life, he said, which has just come out. And 1977 for us seems like a long time ago, but it's a doctor who specifically studied all he heard of. I went through a tunnel and I saw some light, and he got, 100 interviews with people, anyone he could find, and tried to catalog, record, sort of see what experiences they had in common, their observations, and so on. And a medical doctor who had just a curiosity. I don't know his total motivation, but Swamiji had the chance to meet him near the end of Swamiji's life and this man's life, maybe a few times, but certainly at the end also. They were speaking together at a conference. But to see a video of someone telling the story, you get to just evaluate it yourself. Are they making it up? Did someone write the whole thing down? Okay, say there's a tunnel, because there's always a tunnel. And, what's the tunnel? Yogis know. What's the tunnel? Sort of is the, some metro thing that's happening for, all the souls go into the... No, what's the tunnel? Yeah, the light perhaps at the end. Yes, Napoleon's been around a while, so he says, in fact, the spiritual eye, because it becomes a tunnel when you go into samadhi, that's true. But this is sort of death, which unfortunately doesn't lead right to samadhi. But you're right in the deepest sense. Spine. The spine. It's just that simple. And people have had these experiences because they look in older times than 1977, and there's artists from different countries and describing the transition at death, and there's a tunnel that somebody's journeying to a light beyond, and there's a lot of these things that once you hear about it, or a little yoga, you would recognize. And they didn't put a paragraph explanation in Aramaic saying, so I had this experience when I got, drowned and then came back to life. They just put a painting for you to decipher or not. But so many people talk about that world is so much more real than ours. A friend here, a Kriya yogi, part of what put him on the spiritual path was he died on the operating table. And then he said, I went into this light, this place. Oh, it was so wonderful. And then, these people come back. And he said, and I was so unhappy to come back. And you hear that comment so often. And I'll leave aside what about their life on earth and their family and all that. They often say, I still felt connected to them. So that's a whole other talk. But many of them said I didn't want to come back. He said, I was forced back. And yet, then why was he on the operating table? Because of cancer and complications. And he came back, he started meditating, he started doing yoga. He was going for his cancer checkups regularly, as you have to, every 3 months, 6 months, whatever. And all of his cancer markers went down. And his doctor said, this was unexpected. They were trying to just hold them from not going up too much too quickly, and instead they went down. And his doctor said, this is why we love India, he said, you're doing some pranayama, some meditation? In other words, you've had this miraculous cure. It's yoga, va? There must be something that you're doing that made this all go away, because medical science couldn't describe it. And the doctor said, your next checkup is never. Don't come back. There's no need. Why waste your time? You're done. Just a wonderful thing. Why? Because it's just about curing the body. You can cure the body as much as you want. There's going to be one thing you won't be able to cure it from at the end. But so what? It's not just that. It's that proof that this light has a power over, the God's light has a power over this world. That's one reason why the story of Jesus was so dramatic, especially to the people in his time, because he died and he came back. I mean, it would still be pretty dramatic in 2024. Somebody comes back the next day, saying, "Yapri Kingla," and you say, "Ni Yapri," just like, what? And so my first Jesus resurrection joke in Tamil. So to transcend the laws of this world means there's some higher power. And so to see my friend, for example, having that healing shows us that power can uplift us, can go beyond all of this. There's many stories like that. A famous one that does anyone remember? It was years ago, the book, it's called Dying to Be Me. What's her name? Anita Morjani, that's right. She's an Indian. She was living in Singapore, full of cancer, died, came back. I forget if she wanted to or not. I think she was given a choice. Anyway, after that, she said she had tumors the size of lemons, not Chennai lemons. I mean, U.S. lemons, which are like 3 or 4 times the size of that. They're probably not from the U.S., but that's just where I saw them first. And you can get them here. Imported lemons. And anyway, let me stop that. Next you see the lemons. But she said the doctors had already told her, the first thing they said was she's gone, there's no hope. And she said, never say that around a dying person. Because as soon as they heard, she was unresponsive. They figured she doesn't know. She said, I knew. I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't speak. I couldn't move. And they said, she's dead, basically. She said, I just gave up then. And that's why she died. And so that was one of her first campaigns for the sick and ailing, is never say there's no hope or anything. A number of people who have died said they heard that. And as soon as they heard that, they decided, well, I guess it's time to float out of the body. And she said she came back, and those, over the course of a week, I think, all those tumors shrank and disappeared. She was completely well. She's, go see her on YouTube if you want. She's going around sharing about this. And so, again, the power over this thing is a power that, over this level of experience, is what we want. And so, I mention this. It's only a sidelight, but it's just interesting because it corroborates what the masters have taught. The most interesting thing to the doctor was that, who did the first big study in this book, Life After Life, is that people, of course, they didn't know each other, but they presented common elements of their experience, and that many of them weren't religious at all. So it's not like Krishna came to them because they expected Krishna to come, or God said, look, he's prayed to Krishna, so I bet Krishna, sorry, do you have a moment? There's this one, he needs your help. It wasn't having to do with any expectation. Sometimes people who were deeply religious in one way didn't have any kind of religious experience that they could identify. Others who are very much either atheist or whatever would still have the same experience. So in other words, it couldn't have been preconditioned that way. So again, if you're ever doubting, it's fun to watch one of these things once in a while because it just reminds us. As I said, we need constant reminders that there's more to this level of reality, and that more is joy, it's happiness. And God, in every moment, every day, but every moment, is trying to help us to become more happy. And how do we become the most happy? By coming home, by merging with Him.